Hello, I'm Paul Ritchie. I'm here to introduce you to the website Allegheny Independent Media. This is a non-fluff website dealing with issues, social issues, and other issues related to the area. It is supported by a grant from the Leveler Foundation and has the Community Foundation for the Alleghenies as a fiduciary. I do statistical analysis to help you to see patterns in the area that aren't easy to see with the naked eye. Plus, I do interviews with local individuals in the area to help illuminate you on their struggles and give voice to the voiceless. I welcome all your feedback, and I hope you find this website illuminating.
Our diocese was a dumping ground for many other dioceses because it was so much easier to hide here. So I think if we ever get the opportunity for the retroactive window that I've been working on for victims of past child sex abuse like myself that timed out of our statutes of limitation decades ago, I think that if we ever are successful in getting that law passed, which I believe 2023 will be the year, I think that the citizens of the Altoona Johnstown Diocese are in for quite a shock.
You just didn't really think much about disability. We were still going to public schools with disabled students being segregated from the rest of the students. So that's what I was, living in. So now I acquire disability. I don't know my rights. And essentially the college is actually discriminated against. And, that was a hard lesson to learn. And that was kind of what really lit a fire for me to start becoming an advocate more and speaking up and wanting to learn more about disability rights and my rights and other people's rights. So
I thank you for your time, and I hope we can stay in touch.
We will. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye. Were you concerned at all about things like government surveillance, or I guess I know.
Well, I guess we took that for granted.
J. Edgar Hoover was going to be sticking his nose, would be worried about you.
I'm sure, but that never faced us in a serious way.
Okay. And I like with judicial elections, very few people, they know very little about the candidates, and they all think they have to be tough on crime and they need the FOP endorsement.
But there's so much more that state courts do, right? Just besides criminal cases, civil cases, voting rights cases, education funding cases.
Yes.
Kent County.
Okay, so in your presentation, we learned a lot about Jeff Yass. I admit I'd never heard of him either. So he works kind of like the Koch brothers do on the national stage in Pennsylvania politics.
Yeah, I will say our partners at the Payback Table have definitely been doing much more research on Jeffrey Yaz, but he has been moving massive amounts of money into both Democratic and Republican candidates, trying to control school boards so that they return investment back into him, into private schools, and has been, working to keep, the 1% controlling our political system.
Okay. Well, So, hey, Diego, you can tell us more about the clinic.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Mm-hmm. So, yes, Salud para Niños started 20 years ago. And actually, Salud para Niños are the three words in Spanish for health for the children. And Salud is an acronym that stands for Students, Residents, Faculty, and Latinos United Against Health Disparities. So one of our main goals is to address health disparities in the community, mainly in the Latino community, but throughout our program, we actually have been able to help many people who are not even Latinos. One of the ways that we address disparities is by addressing barriers to healthcare access. So one of the things that we do is try to learn about the barriers that people face to have access to healthcare. And once we learn about those barriers, we try to address them, and with that, we're addressing health disparities. So one of the biggest things that we learned 20 years ago was having another language as a barrier. So
how do we make breakthroughs with people
Yeah.
who are much more conservative? And we made the argument that single payer, universal health care, sometimes called Medicare for all, improved Medicare for all,
Yeah.
is the fiscally responsible approach to healthcare. It'll actually save money, save lives, create jobs, and make business more functional here in the state of Pennsylvania. And so,
it seems that a lot of our officials at the top, a lot of our lawmakers, beyond Cambria County, beyond the state, just seem to overlook child welfare professionals and the vital work that they do. And that's just been something that as a union, we've been trying to work with community allies and partners and form coalitions and develop those relationships to bring awareness to so many dedicated professionals who work in all forms across the child welfare system, who are really our heroes without capes.
Yes. Okay. I mean, yes, I would argue that these workers are just as essential as our police. So I've noticed here, this is like a listing of all the states that have implicated Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act. And we can see that, yes, a lot of Confederate states are the ones that are still refusing to implement it, including Wisconsin and Kansas and Wyoming. So like how much of a burden does that place on different healthcare systems, like refusing to like these governors who refuse to implement the expansion?
Yeah, I prepared for this today from the standpoint of looking at the national landscape, and one of the things that was very sad and frustrating was the political implications of what could have been a more effective system. And it was a pretty simple formula, except for two aspects of it. The formula was the reverse of car insurance. In car insurance, we know that all the 16-year-olds are going to go out and spice up the cars. It's like, they got to get the experience under their belt and they have to figure things out. And so all of the older people were primarily underwriting the cost of those kids wrecking their cars. And when you got to be an old person, they just took your license away from you. So it was mostly us underwriting the kids. And this health insurance plan that they came up with was primarily the kids underwriting us, because they don't get sick as much. They don't have as 80% of our healthcare expenditures happen in the last few months of our lives. And so by those states not participating, it made the pool smaller and it made it less effective. And so financially, it caused a great deal of stress on the program, which was what they wanted, because then they could say it was a terrible program, but it never came about.
Just like the Valley in Johnstown regularly
yeah. I mean, so when their empire came here, this was a place that was great for farming that maize right down the valley. They built their structures up on top of that hill, and the reason that's already a high point. The whole point of building these pyramids was to raise up towards the sky their religious leaders, their priests, their political leaders, because they worship the sun as their principal god among many other deities, because it's the sun that does the work of creating that maize crop that created their civilization. And it's the same color as the maize, And so what they were trying to do was to get closer to their god, which is what all religious people 500-600 years ago and before were trying to do. It's why
I figured once the virus hit, I turned off the comments because I didn't want anyone to be using the comments to spread, ivermectin works, or all you have to do is take zinc, or it's just the common cold. I mean, if someone believes that, they can write it in their own blog, but they're not going to use mine. So I thought the amount of work that it would take to kind of pick and choose which comment to go with, I said it's not worth it. So I just turned off all the comments. And if I post something in Twitter and I get a comment there, that's fine.
It was just a wonderful meeting until I found out that we also shared the same kind of passions and mission for bettering the community and seeing this rise of anti-immigrant sentiment in the not only our community but like in the entire nation. So that was something that kind of led me to join, and from there I've been so happy to be a part of many of our like diversity initiatives. So I'm happy to say that we support the Johnstown NAACP a lot with the MLK events. We like to just make sure we make an appearance there and show our support, as well as for the yearly Juneteenth events. We try to have a booth every year.
And I'm actually an Anabaptist, so I want to really create awareness that the person who was driving that is not someone who has a lot of convergence with Anabaptist theology. Okay. So yeah, that was at the point where my kids were really little. So that was before social media. So I was aware of it, and I think I went out there once for like a protest or something, but I wasn't super involved. You know, being a mom of young kids, and especially having a young child with a disability that has lots of needs, it wasn't possible for me to be as active at that particular time, but I remember that very well.
Okay. Yeah. I guess maybe, so could you tell me some of the issues that might be specific to, say, this area or this part of Pennsylvania or Somerset County that may not be faced in other, like say, in other regions?
I think one of the problems that we have in this area is that we have so many healthcare disparities that exist for the LGBT community, which is to say, it shouldn't be, we should not have to travel 60 miles to Pittsburgh or further, or to Erie or to Altoona. And because we are a small area, it takes a loud voice for insurance companies to notice that we're here.
We'll be on a panel discussing the Rosedale incident. This will be so September 7th will be the 100th anniversary that the order was given by Mayor Joseph Caulfield for African American. So every African American who had been living in the city, since 1916, and every Mexican all of a sudden had to leave. Okay, I'll let Courtney give you the background and discussion. So,
well, what we're going to definitely do, I would advise everyone to definitely read Cody's book, because it is a bit of history that a lot of Johnstown residents don't know. And it was a national incident. It was in the newspapers in 1923, so it was being discussed, but it has been forgotten. I, and along with, like you said, my aunt, Dr. Carol Francois, and the author Cody McDevitt will be talking about the incident. We will be talking about how that's relevant today. I will be talking about the concept of sundown towns and segregated neighborhoods in America. So there'll be a Q&A session, there'll be a presentation, it will be a live podcast. So we welcome everyone to come out, and we will also be honoring and showcasing the art, the photography, the beautiful photography of Jackie Gumby, who is a local photographer in Johnstown. So that is her part to play in that event. We definitely.
Okay. So what did you find for Blair County this year?
So this year we found 10. Again, it was really cold. We had the snow and ice storm. A lot of them, we go out between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. A lot of them might have still been sitting at sheets or inside somewhere. And we do go to those places, but it's a little bit more tricky to tell who is homeless, not sitting there with a sign above their head. So we did the best we could there, and there were barriers as to roads that we could access and everything. We got 10 unsheltered in Blair. 25 were in a hotel through our agency with our funding. In Cambria, we couldn't find any. There's a lot of reasons why we don't find any in Cambria. A lot of them stay in abandoned houses that aren't safe for us to go into.
Mhm.
A lot of them don't like to be found, and I can discuss that more in the data that we have in our coordinated entry system. And again, it's up the mountain in Cambria, and the snow and ice was significantly worse. And for the safety of our volunteers, we couldn't make them go into some of the more rural areas.
Looking at this is for the whole of Cambria County for the Fetterman Oz race.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can see like Fetterman's vote was concentrated mostly in and around Johnstown. But
Well,
yeah,
that's where I was able to do the most work. So glad to see that.
and yeah, he actually, Fetterman actually won. He won the, like if you just look at, say, the 17 precincts that cover the city of Johnstown city limits. He actually won there by a bigger margin than Joe Biden did in 2020. Like he won by, I think, around 80 votes.
Wow.
But Fetterman won the city by about 366. So I wonder if this is some indication of some kind of political realignment going on, say, between Johnstown and the rest of Cambria County.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think we're starting to see that, but I also think that John Fetterman was just a really unique and exciting candidate for our area. So it may just be a one-off, but I definitely think that the issues combined with like his appeal in Steeltown, Johnstown was, especially strong in this past election.
Yeah.
So you're talking about January 6th for
They're political prisoners, straight out. You
mean the people who were there at the rally?
The people that went down to D.C. on January 6th. They are still in prison pre-trial. They have not been offered any kind of bail, and yet in all these other cities, you have people left out with nothing.
Yeah.
Return on your own recognizance.
But I mean, the ones who have been tried, I mean, were they right to be put in jail?
That depends. Were they murderers?
Well, vandalism, maybe. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you realize they have rapists in New York City that get left out without any bail at all?
No, I did not.
We're talking misdemeanors. There are misdemeanors that these people are in the D.C. jail for.
Yeah.
And they have been there for over a year and a half.
I see.
Much of that time in solitary confinement. All you gotta do is look it up.
Sure. Is that a map of what county?
Armstrong County.
Armstrong County.
Yep, there's a busload of us here from Armstrong County.
All right.
Not yet. I haven't made it that far back.
Cool. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Jail.
Huh? Oh, you're not?
We wait for Shire.
Yes.
And now exile. And now this is the issue over here.
So, all right, where do you live?
The issue is China coming in USA. Want to make communists over here.
Yeah.
Take away they take away human rights and make common sense. They want to make common sense from that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. What's your name?
My name is Yo Friedman.
Okay. All right, I'm Paul Ricci. Nice to meet you. All right, I'm just getting some interviews. All right, well, have a nice day.
Environmentalist, because I grew up seeing orange creeks, water wells that would be drilled and turn out to produce orange water. Bony piles that would catch on fire through spontaneous combustion in the middle of July and burn and give off this obnoxious rotten egg smell throughout this valley.
Wow.
And I looked at the little creek that ran through my town, and it was orange, with all kinds of garbage and debris in it.
Okay. There, but
Okay, and so do you know, like, was there a large contingent, say, from Pittsburgh that went down to Washington, D.C. for the pro-Israel rally?
Yes, we took over 400 people from Pittsburgh down to the March for Israel. We were really pleased with the turnout. We had 10 buses from all over the city, and Jews and non-Jews as well.
Yeah.
You know, it was really a broad coalition of people. I think that whatever your view on Israeli politics, supporting the March for Israel was really about supporting the people of Israel and Israel's right to exist as a independent Jewish state, and as well calls for continuing support for our elected officials, both for Israel and for the people of Israel and for the release of the hostages.
I'm actually in the county in Florida where Moms for Liberty was developed. I know the leaders personally, or one of them anyway. And so we, you know, I at first tried to be very rational and speak with some of the local members and, you know, just say, you know, can't we work together and do some positive things for public schools if you want things to change? And instead of listening to someone who had been in the trenches, I'm a retired teacher, they decided that they would call me names and, you know, claim that I was supporting pedophilia and, you know, some pretty awful stuff.
Hello. So I guess as treasurer, you would be working a lot. I guess maybe some people may not understand exactly what the treasurer does. I mean, I assume like, you know, they are separate. I mean, maybe they are part of the executive branch of the state government.
Well, the
But
treasurer's the treasurer is what's considered a row office. So the treasurer just manages as far as the coffers. There's what they call the four funds, three big pension funds. 43% of the coffer is this teacher's pension, and then you have the state workers' pension and the municipal workers' pension. And then you have, you know, all the rest of the tax dollars, the 529 accounts, the PA ABLE accounts. So those types of savings accounts that are run by the state. And then you have contract oversight, controlling all the contracts that go through the treasurer's office, which are entered into a database that I think is very antiquated right now. You can't search by women-owned businesses or who's union and non-union. There's a lot of information I think we could be extrapolating from those contracts and letting people know who is getting government contracts and who's doing that work. And I don't think that as I've gone through that process, it's very cumbersome and it's not as informative as it could be. So that's definitely something that I would like to do. Is I'd like people to actually know a little bit more about the vendors that their state is using in their procurement process.
But a good undertaking. This is the first presidential election since the January 6th insurrection, since Roe versus Wade got overturned, since former president and accused criminal Trump was slammed with 91 felonies, and since his trials began. We've got a lot going on right now for this election, and anything can happen between now and November. It is tremendously important that Democrats are out there and represented. And so I'm doing that, and ultimately, we want to get into office.
okay, well that's all well and good. So is this your first? So was last time your first run for office in 2022?
Technically, no. I'm an elected member of the Adams County Democratic Committee.
Oh, you are?
I am. And I was appointed school board member last March, but then I had to run for it. So I campaigned and won the Democratic primary. I had cross-filed. I won that Democratic primary. And then I ran for the November election, and I didn't get it, obviously, but I did secure 43% of the vote.
Have an impact on care. And so there is a lot of academic research, Paul, that shows that private equity investments in healthcare are not good for the consumers of healthcare, not good for patients, not good for workers in those in those kinds of settings. And so that's really, I think, what's coming into focus for people now is this problem of juxtaposing the need for high profits with the idea of caring for patients.
Yes, okay. I mean, first when, you know, I heard that Duke Life Point was taking over, first I thought, okay, it was Life Point. Are they affiliated with Duke University at all?
Well, I think Duke, I'm not sure the answer to that question. I don't want to make an error in my response here, but I know that Duke Life Point does operate in other parts of the country. What that would probably look like would be some sort of a joint venture. But, you know, Life Point being involved does bring you back to the private equity issue.
Okay, yes, so she's the author who will be profiling. Can you tell us about some of her writings?
Yes, yeah. We're so excited to have Jennifer with us this year. She's going to be giving a keynote presentation on our Friday fundraiser. And she's the author of 8 books, I believe, and she has won numerous awards, the Penn Hemingway Award, the Mark Twain, I won't get the title exactly right. And she has, her books have been nominated, or they have been best books for the Washington Post, I believe, New York Times bestselling. She's really, really accomplished writer, and she also teaches creative writing at the University of Boston. But why we're so excited is that Jennifer is she grew up in Barbaro, which is in Cambria County, and she went to Bishop Carroll High School right here in Evansburg. So she's coming home.
Okay, yes, certainly. Well, it'd be good to see her and meet her. And so I guess certainly sounds like she's done very well. I mean, I guess other local authors could include Cheryl Strayed. She's from the same town.
That's correct, yes.
Who wrote Wild. That was made into a movie with Reese Witherspoon.
Great movie, great book as well, yes.
Yes, and I guess other local authors might be like a Dean Koontz. He wrote, I guess he's more from down around Everett, but.
Yeah, look, you know, public safety is important, but there's multiple ways to get there. Look, you know, my dad made some mistakes with drugs. He dealt too, and he ended up going to prison for that. So, you know, look, people that make those mistakes, there should be some level of punishment for it, but that's not the only way to protect the community. There's other ways, whether it's investing in education, making sure that we're making long-term investments to give kids hope so we can reduce crime that way. Whether it's, you know, investigating in drug rehabilitation programs, making sure we're getting people the treatment they need. There's a whole host of things we can do to protect the environment and protect the community.
Hello. Hey, Amy, how are you doing?
How are you?
Okay, doing some live streaming of this event for my website.
What's your website?
Allegheny Independent Media.
Oh, okay.
So, how have you been?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing
Okay,
well.
so how's the campaign going?
It's going very well. Yeah, people have been great at the doors. We've hit over almost 9,000 doors at this point, so got to talk to a lot of people.
Certainly takes a lot of time.
It does, yeah.
So, okay, and yeah, I guess, so I know it's a tough campaign with lots of money.
Yes, my opponent has spent a lot of money.
Yeah, so I guess, well, some of your funding, you said, is coming from Jeffrey S.
I don't know. I haven't spent any of mine. There are outside interest groups that
that are pouring money in.
Yeah, so.
Okay, I don't know.
Not to my campaign.
Yeah.
There are individual PACs that she has no control of.
Yeah.
So they spend on her behalf. But
Well, I'm sure doing what they can, to trash Frank Burns, and so
yeah, he spent over $1,080,000 just on WJC ads.
So do you have any comment on, like, I guess, efforts to bring Afghan refugees? I mean, I personally support them coming here. Afghan refugees coming here? Do you have anything
There was
respond to that?
Vision Together 2025 at one point looked at bringing some families in of American allies who had helped
Yes.
the American soldiers, and there were very successful programs in other parts of the state, and they looked into it and it was determined that it wouldn't work here, so it was dropped.
Oh,
but we're going to have college students, and then also we're pairing Newsapalooza with our high school media day. So we're going to have over 200, maybe 250 high school students there as well. And there will be opportunities to ask questions at all of our panels, which I think is going to be a great opportunity. And that's really why we're trying to focus on, okay, hey, how can you as a citizen, as a neighbor, get involved in communicating with your local journal?
Actually challenged me. He said, you know what? I'd like to see you write your stories in no more than 500 words. And I took that to heart, and I really tried hard, and it was difficult. If anyone's tried to, do anything like that, you realize it's difficult.
I guess the
The
readers can sort of insert their own imagination into the story. The more brief it is.
Yep. Well, and also it's a matter of getting rid of the excess junk that's not really needed. One of the stories I wrote was 1,200 words long, and I managed to pare it down to 500. And you find when you go through over and over and over again, you find there's a lot of things that don't need to be there. And it helped me to tighten up my writing, to focus on just the story.
In Goodreads, and you said you had worked as a political activist for a long time.
Yeah, I worked on state, local, and federal campaigns as a political operative for more than 20 years. That's after a 5-year career teaching public school. And I got to work for some tremendous leaders of both major political parties in the United States. And I think the closer I got to the really higher offices, the more I saw pursuing this power changes people, not always in good ways. And even my own pursuit of public office, I won, I lost. By the time I reached my 20th year, I really felt like I had kind of reached the point where I no longer wanted to be part of it professionally. It just was not fulfilling anymore. And so I tried to transform that experience and that excitement into some of those stories into some thrilling fiction writing. All
right.
Okay.
This one, the controls are in a different location here.
Okay,
and
well, these have okay, so I guess the ones with larger graph have more wells.
So yes, exactly. The ones with more graphs have more wells, and they're color coded as far as which one we're looking at. But you can also scroll down and click on this thing that says unconventional wells generalized.
Okay.
And that will show you where the unconventional wells in Pennsylvania are located. And
So
so
these are more like the fracking wells.
Right. Now, there's a thing about fracking, like industry people will tell you, well, there's been fracking for, 60 or 70 years at this point, which is true. But a lot of the older wells, which are considered conventional wells in Pennsylvania, they're a lot shallower, and they might have 10 or 20,000 gallons of fluid instead of 10 or 20 million gallons of fluid. So it's really a matter of scale that makes a difference between these. But yeah, these purple wells here are the unconventional wells. So these are the very large well pads that are maybe 5 acres in size, that use millions of gallons of fluid per well, and might have 5 to 15 wells on a single pad.
Okay. Yeah, and I do know, like Cambria County, I mean, it does have some air quality issues. And could these be at least partially related to the fracking wells?
Yeah, I mean they certainly can be. I know there's a well pad down the street from me, and it smells. You can smell the sulfur coming from the well pad every time you drive by, or almost every time you drive by, depending on how the wind is.